Today, I'm very lucky to be joined by Runway's lead generation expert, Dave Huggin. So welcome, Dave. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thanks for the introduction, Nick.
Maybe if you could just start by telling the viewers a little bit more about your background in your own words.
Yeah, certainly, yes. So yeah, 20, as you mentioned, 20 years in sales, in business development, and in particular in generating new leads. And a lot of that was cold calling, which I do actually love doing. Yes, I've written email campaigns and marketing campaigns, and I've helped design websites to make them more of a sales tool. And CRM is very important as well, LinkedIn. But a lot of what I've done has been on the phone with a cold call, with a call out of the blue to try and generate new business. And whether that's been selling software to a small business all the way up to large IT contracts with government departments, it's quite often the relationship started with a telephone call.
Why should high growth businesses be looking at a more structured lead generation model? What impact does that have on the business?
Yeah, great question. And I think the key word there is structured. People are inundated with emails right now, and LinkedIn invites and requests and invites to webinars, particularly during COVID-19. It's gone really crazy. So they really appreciate
every day you get like 5 new ones.
You could attend 40 webinars a day, basically.
Yeah.
And yes, look, there's a passion and an energy to telephone-based lead generation, but you have to have some metrics, so you have to have a structured approach. For me, that means dedicating some particular time in the day to generating new leads. Maybe an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, but keeping it the same. I actually have my own little metrics of 60 dials turns into 8 really good conversations, turns into 2 leads. It's as simple as that in an interruption-free day. And I actually had somebody just the other day say to me, David, it's so nice to have a phone call. My inbox is full of rubbish, all these emails and invites. It's just nice to talk to somebody on the phone. Now, the other thing you have to have a structure to is you have to have a structure to your call. And during COVID-19, that has to begin with a good news story. You have to start a call with a story about either what you've just done as a business for a very similar organization. Maybe you just made a sale with a similar company. That's fantastic news right now. We all love good news stories at this time in June 2020. And also you call them if they've just been in the news themselves, the organization that you're talking to. Maybe they've just done something really cool, and you call and ask them about whether your product or service can help them with the next part of their journey as well. So people are loving about any sort of news about a recent sale. I'm finding that with my job, I'm calling obviously on behalf of Runway, and they're blown away that we're doing well right now, and they like the fact that we're doing well, and they want to get on that bandwagon. And that's the way you've got to start the intro to the phone call.
That's fantastic. I think those statistics are, like, as a rule of thumb, that's really interesting, those numbers. I think that if you could, if you can tap anything that gives you repeatable outcomes, you've got to pursue it. If you look at sort of the digital customer acquisition channels, if we just sort of said, like, compared email marketing, sometimes you can spend a huge amount of time and effort on email campaigns for very little, if any, actual genuine response in terms of sales. Whereas 60 dials leading to 2 qualified leads, that's a great outcome. Why do you think people aren't doing more of this? Is it because they're scared of the telephone, they're scared of making the cold call, or what is it?
There's a little bit of that. Quite often it depends on what the current scenario is. A lot of organizations have become used to getting inbound inquiries, and at some point that either dries up or the quality lessens, or you just any growth business starts getting fussy about who they do business with and starts going out to organizations for the first time. So then it's normally because they haven't done it before and they're used to people being warm. And yeah, there's a little bit, there's a certain type of person who likes getting on the phone and doing a cold call. I think it's definitely sort of a skill set needed. It's somebody who likes being on the phone and talking to people, but also likes listening as well, and likes rapport building. I think as well is a really important part of it as well. So I think it's skills and just basically what your background has been.
Mm. And I mean, you and I met that way, so I know that you're very effective at it, and you sort of do it in such a way that you don't actually feel like you're getting sold, even though you effectively sold me. So it's like very well done. But I think people are sort of scared of it, or they don't know where to start. What's your view of what's the biggest mistake that people are making when they're trying to do this for themselves? What are they missing out on?
There's a few big mistakes that people make or organizations make. I think the typical bad sales call is, "Hi, I'm Brian calling from XYZ accounting software. Would you like to buy our product? No, we use Xero, buy," kind of thing. That's it's a disastrous start to a call, and also the bad start to the relationship as well. So it's being prepared. It's quite often the other big mistake that organizations make is not following up correctly with after the initial call as well, and not listening to what the customer wants.
Yeah.
And this is where the CRM comes in handy for notating exactly how a new customer or potential customer wants to be followed up. They quite often tell you quite specific things, and you just need to follow them. They will say something along the lines of, "If you send me the Baker's Delight case study to me on Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock before my 11 o'clock board meeting, I'll share it with the team. If you call me at 11 o'clock the following day on Thursday, I'll have spoken to the MD, and then we can set up a meeting for the following week." Well, that's quite a bit of information. So you need to write it down, put it in the CRM, and also then follow that. So a big mistake that organizations make is then sometimes bombarding them with other emails, calling them before the Wednesday, not sending the right stuff. And it's really great stuff to notate for future use, because everything that somebody says on the phone is worth putting into a CRM for future reference. The other big mistake is then they sometimes give up on someone who says no too easily, and a no can be handled with an objection if it's budget, or if it's currently working with a current provider, then it's a temporary no. So what you have to do then is be ready when they are going to buy. And again, that's a case of just finding out when that will happen. If it's October, maybe it's a year's time. But unfortunately, life goes by fast, and October comes around eventually, and so does next year. But at least your note is there in CRM.
Yeah.
Remember when to contact them, and you can also contact everybody who said call us in Feb as well. So that's a big mistake. And I think, and also knowing when someone is genuinely saying no to you as well is very important, and respecting that, and finding out if they ever will be a customer, and when that might be.
Where do I start? What's the first thing that you think I should be doing?
First of all, you've got to have the right person doing it. Whether you have that already, or you train somebody up internally to do it, or you recruit somebody to do it. Having that person who wants to pick up the phone and start selling, and has a positive attitude about doing that, and doesn't get demoralized when they don't get through to people, that's a great starting point. However experienced they are, they've got to have a script, and the script is not something to be read out necessarily. It's a guide to your phone call. It can have your story that I talked about before, your good news story. It can be all your best lines can be in there. It's normally a VP. It's usually for the first 40 45 seconds of the call. Maybe with some objection handling in there as well. But it's important to have a script. Even I, after 20 years, use my own scripts. If there's a certain message I want to make sure I get across. The other thing that you have to do is you have to set bold but realistic targets. You have to give a salesperson something to go for, but you can't make them too unrealistic so that the salesperson becomes demoralized. There's nothing worse than a salesperson who doesn't think that they can make target. And I think, yeah, there's a sort of a resilience and learning from mistakes, and keep using your winning lines. If you're finding that a line is really resonating with potential customers, then just keep using it.
Mm. So I think for those people who are watching and wanting to get started, so that they've made a decision, okay, so now I'm going to do this. From your experience, what do you think could then happen? You know, how soon are people going to see results?
Well, the first thing that happens is the customer likes you straight away, because you're already doing what they've asked for, you've built rapport, and you've followed up in the right way. And that already means that you're standing out from the crowd, because they're getting bombarded by bad sales calls, emails, and other things all the time. So you stand out from the rest. You also, especially during COVID, you find the lower hanging fruit because people are buying out there. Maybe it's a little bit harder to find them, so maybe you have to step up the metrics a little bit based on what I said earlier right now. But you find the lower hanging fruit by really getting on with the calling, doing those 2 hours a day of calling. The other thing that you get early on is you really start honing your pitch, and you start getting used to saying the right things by doing it more and more often. And that's key in the first 2 or 3 weeks of doing a structured lead generation exercise. And also, you start these long-term relationships in the right way. You know, you've been working with a customer for 7 years, but you've known them for 7 years. You've only been working with them for 5 years. So it was 2 years before you got them to come on board. But it probably started off with something, and it probably started off with a good phone call out of the blue. And everything starts from somewhere. And if you start off on the right foot, that's, even if it's a long-term thing, it's worth doing it right from the very beginning.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Well, that's fantastic. I think you've provided some really good insights there to our viewers that could be really helpful. Look, I just want to say thank you very much for your time today. Just before we finish up, is there anything more that you'd like to leave as a parting thought to those people who are watching on, as maybe one little secret that you would pass on?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So I think, well, first of all, just get on the phone and start doing it and see what happens. You know, talk to people, tell them about that great new customer you've just brought on board, because they should know about it. But then listen to what they're doing. Listen carefully to what they're doing. People do like talking about what their own business is up to. Don't be afraid to ask for a meeting. People sometimes are on a great call and then revert back to, I'll send you an email. Sometimes the call can be fantastic, the first call, and they actually want to meet you straight away. At the moment, it's via Zoom, but
via Zoom.
But in the future, face to face again. That's right. Don't be afraid. Sometimes the first call is great, and they already want to talk about something. Don't send them a generic email after that. And then my final piece of advice is just keep learning. We can always keep learning. And we can learn from those who are more experienced and older than us, but we can also learn from younger people as well. And I'm still learning every day that I do this job. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time, Dave. And I think that's a wrap for us.